the magic healing powers of energy. Today we have Ruth from Finding Balance Kinesiology. Hi Ruth, welcome for coming in to our show, and thanks for sharing your modality with all the listeners out there. So Ruth, how did you get into kinesiology?
Hello, well, thank you so much for having me. So I first heard about kinesiology when I was about 18, which was not long after my digestive issues started. But the woman was quite far away. She was pretty expensive. And at the time, my priorities were more about going out with my friends. So I didn't actually go and see her. And years later, so I'd been suffering with a digestive issue for 17 years at this point. I'd tried so many different things, some of them with varying benefits. And the word kinesiology came up again, and I was like, okay, maybe this is something I need to look into. And went for a session, was completely blown away that, after sort of struggling for 17 years and really struggling to get a lot of answers. I do remember one doctor at one point, absolute tears in her office. And the suggestion that she gave me, I was like, is there an alternative? And she basically just said, if you don't want to take my advice, then I think you should leave.
Oh, great. Well, you too, yeah.
Yeah. So to finally have someone to listen to me and to be able to give me some answers was just amazing. And I remember leaving that session, and I had a few more sessions with them, and just going, the way my brain works, I needed to understand what had happened, because it was quite an unusual in comparison to your general, going to see the doctor. It's very different to your standard treatment. And I just wanted to understand it. And initially that was for myself. So I went and did a foundation course. And then after that, I was just like, I got hooked, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole, as most of us do when we start our journey.
It is. Kinesiology is like that, isn't it? It's amazing. Now, you actually just said something that like it's different than normal, normal practice, what you would expect. What do you mean by that? What's so different about it?
Well, in kinesiology, what we're doing is we're actually talking to your body. So we're asking your body questions via a muscle response.
Yeah.
So obviously, normally, like, you come in and you do obviously sit down, and we go through and talk about what's going on for you. And that helps me to work out which muscles I need to test. But obviously, for the most part, I'm actually asking your subconscious mind, what is it struggling with? Where is it out of balance? And what does it need to bring it back into balance? So often it's a way to kind of get in faster than if we kind of sort of go through it on that surface level. So it can really sort of help to open people up to things that they'd, like for myself, things that they'd never even realized could be connected with what's going on for them.
Yeah, and I don't want you to give me all your personal details, but what was it for you that, you felt you were causing your digestive issues?
Well, it was actually the first thing that came up. It was actually about an event that had happened when I was 12 at school.
Wow.
To do with a social group, and I was just still holding a lot of guilt, which is so within the traditional Chinese medicine, within the meridians, which is the muscle system that we're using, we have different emotions that sit in different meridians, and guilt sits in the large intestine, which was obviously one of the big issues that I was having. Yes. So once I worked through that, put that together, made that connection, literally the next day, I noticed a huge difference in my response and how my body felt.
If you went to a normal doctor, they wouldn't even consider that, would they? They wouldn't have even...
No. Well, I've been going to doctors for 17 years, so...
And it's a really good feeling to actually go somewhere and someone's listening and you're getting results, and you're both discovering more about yourself and little things. That wasn't obviously a little thing to your body or your subconscious, but in your frontal mind, that was only something you didn't consider again to affect your health, and the impact that it made and held on for such a long time. It obviously was quite deep and seated. Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yes, sir. I broke your talk there. Keep going. Yeah.
No. I was just going to say, I think the big thing that often we don't factor in is in the moment, sort of how it feels. If as a 12-year-old, how that felt for me is very, very different to how it felt when I was then looking at it as a woman in my 30s. Yeah. So often when we're looking at going, what could be impacting this? If something's happened much earlier in our life, we wouldn't think to factor it in, because even when I thought about it at the time, I was like, oh, really? sort of, but then when I thought about it at the perspective of the age I actually was, I'm like, well, actually, yeah, it was a pretty big deal to me back then.
Yeah. So you were just saying then you're a little bit skeptical yourself. Do you find that with some of your patients now, or people coming in?
Yeah, so I get referrals, sort of, someone comes to see me and then they tell a friend or a family member or whatever to come. And yeah, so you do often get people, it's, I guess, depending on what we've been exposed to up until that point, if our exposure has been, to get results and to find out what's going on, we go and we have blood tests, or we go and, have sort of x-rays and things like that, to come into a room and to essentially have someone, pressing a muscle on your arm and then being able to tell you what's going on because of that, it's gonna seem a bit different, isn't it?
It's like you're psychic, Yeah.
I have had that quite a few times. Are you psychic? No, I'm not psychic. I'm just asking your body.
Yeah. And do you find 90% of people take that positively, like when you say that?
Yeah. So I think that's like, the great thing is for me, the big thing that I want to do is I just want people to know what options are available to them. Because I think for me, that was the thing that I really struggled with when I was told that the reason why I was having those issues was because it was stress related, and I just didn't handle stress very well. I needed to live a stress-free life. And I still haven't worked out how to do that. I don't think anyone knows how to do that.
No.
And so when I was left not knowing where to look, for me, that was the massive thing that I wanted to do, is to just share the options that are available to people as much as possible. And if it's not for you, that's absolutely fine. But I just want people to know what options are out there. So then if they are struggling, they know what they've got to choose from.
I think you're right. Like, stress is always going to come to us no matter what form. It's something we can't stop. But we've got to realise that our body is like a rubbish bin. We keep on putting it in, and we do need a modality to pull it out. Kinesiology is one of those beautiful modalities that do allow us to empty our rubbish bin, if that's a way of saying it. Because like you said, we hold on to little things that you move on and you think, oh, that's nothing, but it collects in our rubbish bin and manifests into an illness somewhere along the line, doesn't it?
Definitely. And I kind of think our body is trying to do us a favor, but I think we've become a bit disconnected and we don't understand. Absolutely. So if either we don't have a resource, or we don't, so there's so much going on, so we don't have the time, our body very kindly just goes, I'll put this over here for you to deal with it later.
Yeah.
But the problem is most of us aren't realizing that, and we're kind of just filling up, as you said, the garbage bin until it gets to the point where it's like, there's nowhere else for me to put it to later. Now you're going to have to deal with this.
And like you were saying before, a lot of this garbage is put in as children, where we're told to just, suck it up and go to school, or suck it up and put up with that, or suck it up. And, I'm just going back to, I remember when my daughter was going to school and getting bullied, and her principal just kept on saying, that she needs to build more resilience. She just needs more resilience. And it's like, well, as, my coming at it like you, no, it's not building resilience, it's building sickness in the end, so, and how many children do you hear go through life and they're just told to suck it up, suck it up, suck it up, and then an illness comes when, like you said, in their 30s, and where's it coming from? And it often comes from all this manifestation of when they're children. And you were saying before that you love working with children. Is that because something happened to you when you were a child, or you just
I just think that so much of our programming comes from when we're children. And so for me, when I started working through a lot of this, I was in my 30s. So I had 30 years of stuff to work through and decide, okay, how much of that is my belief? How much of that is somebody else's belief? How much of that have I created a belief and is still valid and benefiting me today? And so I just kind of go that if children have access to some of this information really, really early, then they get to make some really different changes in their life. And the amount of limiting beliefs that so many of us have, if we can start working on that, sort of below the age of 10, imagine the difference that can make. It's huge.
That is huge. I mean, I know I've interviewed and talked to a lot of psychologists and stuff like that, and you are so right. If there's any trauma before the age of 9, and if we leave it after that, it is extremely difficult for that child to leave that behind. So say it may have built up a tool to deal with that trauma at that moment, then they keep on using that same tool for the rest of their life, even if it's not relevant for the time. And like you said, it's not something they consciously do. It's something the body holds on to. It keeps on putting back out there, isn't it? And
definitely,
you're amazing, actually, because kinesiology is sorry to overtake, but I talk to psychologists and it's kind of mind control. And yes, you do need a lot of mind control, but the whole bit that's held in the body and the subconscious is really never considered, and a lot of our mistakes or decisions we make are actually made from the subconscious. So to clear that out, and especially as a child, to start off life as fresh again, how beautiful is that? You're gorgeous. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. The big thing as well is a lot of children don't have the language to be able to describe what's going on for them. So there's a Canadian psychologist who talks about that the way that we deal with the situation depends on the age at which it happened. Because if we're trying to verbalize something from a very young age, it doesn't land because there wasn't that language there at that age. So we have to target it based on the skill set that we had at the time.
Yeah, and to actually ask the body rather than the child, you bypass that. Am I going to get in trouble if I speak? Am I going to, because there's always that thought from a child's perspective, isn't it? If I say something, am I going to get mum in trouble? Am I going to get dad in trouble? Am I going to, if there's someone in trouble? But if you can speak to the body and bypass the child, I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, but, bypassing that, the child is then free to give all the information you need to heal him or her, rather than having to walk through those barriers that child's already built or put up because of
what's happened around them.
And I say trauma, but what we consider trauma, like abuse and stuff like that, is not always necessarily what makes a difference. It's sometimes just little things as well, isn't it? That, real time.
Well, we have your big T traumas and your little T traumas.
Yeah.
And it's also perspective of the age of that person as well. So, as a 2-year-old, your mum suddenly having to go and visit an ill parent and not being there for a week, and you're not really understanding what's happening, that can be a horrific trauma for a 2-year-old because they don't know what's going on. But the child was cared for and looked after, and nothing went wrong, but it's just, how does the body perceive what happened to them?
Yeah, and I mean, this is a bit off topic, but I often have this confusion in my head too of how children are dealt with in divorces. It's like, shh, don't tell them anything. And I kind of, I'm not an expert here, but I always think, well, okay, don't give them everything, but you really need to give them enough understanding to be able for them to have a bit of comfort. Because to me, knowing nothing is fear. Knowing a little bit that I'm going to be safe and everything's under control and blah, blah, blah is a lot better than nothing. But, you would know more than me. Do you see children in those situations from divorces? Because often it's quite, if it's not in the children in that environment, aren't they? With the
definitely.
And everything else. Do you find that they hold a lot of body?
Yeah, and often a lot of the time is then they take on this sort of they can see, because most of the time when adults go through a separation, there's a lot of emotions for the adults. So then the children often see that for the adults, and often there's a lot of children that will take on that responsibility of going, I don't want to put any more onto my parents. So then, really sort of not wanting to express how they're feeling because they don't want to cause any more issues or any more problems for their children. So I have children that come to see me just simply for little check-ins, just almost like once a term, just because how it works, especially when they're little.
Absolutely.
And it's great. I actually have little kids where they'll say, Mom, I think I need to go and see Ruth, or they'll even turn around to their parents and go, I think you need to go and see Ruth.
Well, you were so right, because I used to go see, and unfortunately the practitioner's not working anymore, and that's the only reason why I stopped. But we used to go every 3 months, no matter what. Do you know what I mean? And that was just that little, you know, he was a kinesiologist and a homeopathic practitioner. And he had his own little form of chiropractic. So, I mean, he wasn't a chiropractor, but, you know, he always felt that, you know, energy needed to be aligned with your spine being aligned. But, you know, yeah, he would always come up with something. He would always find something that I've got locked there. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how perfect I thought my life was. There was always something there. And although you walk into his practice thinking, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm all good, what the hell am I here? When I walked out, you felt the whole shift, that whole difference. It's like, wow, actually, yeah, there was something there, you know, and I do feel better, and I can, yeah, it was just, I can't explain it. Energy is amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. And like you were saying before, in arguments and stuff like that, that's energy that's coming and invading that child's space from the outside world. Yeah.
Well, an emotion is energy in motion. So all emotions are just, it's how does that energy land? Does it feel sort of like, can we, and it's that horrible thing at the moment, you know, we talk about positive and negative emotions. I'm like, no emotions are positive or negative. If I've just hurt you and I'm happy about that, that isn't a positive emotion. Yeah. So everything can be in a plus or negative state. But it's all just, yeah, when someone is having an emotion around us, how well are we able to deal with the energy that sort of we're then interacting with? How can we handle that?
And as a child, not having understanding as well, the maturity of having an adult language, like you said before, understanding, it's a lot harder for them to deal with as well, as not to know what to do with it, I suppose, in a positive, positive way. That's amazing. We've gone deeper than what I thought, so it's brilliant. Thank you for being patient with my questions. Really do. Just going back onto energy, like you were saying, your understanding of energy is fluid, always fluid. So you're actually releasing through kinesiology what blocked energy, is that right? Or what happens there?
Well, so in kinesiology, what we're doing is we're working with that. Well, one of the main energy systems we're using is the meridian system. Yeah. And so each meridian is a flow of energy. And we want to make sure that we think of it like a river. So not enough water in a river is a problem, but also too much is a problem. Yeah. So we're trying to just make sure that we've got this even flow of energy around the meridian systems. So sometimes one can actually go into overdrive and sort of suck up more energy from the rest of the system because they're linked, where one finishes, the next one starts. Yeah. So essentially what we're wanting to do is to make sure that the energy in the body is evenly distributed and that there's nothing. So they talk about in traditional Chinese medicine, when something happens and it's unresolved, it's like a pebble gets put into that meridian and then the energy has got to move around it. Okay. So it's about just shifting and removing any of those blockages or unresolved issues out, so then everything can flow freely.
So is that all on the emotional level, or is that physical, or is it like a physical energy?
No, so we're looking at physical, nutritional, emotional, and spiritual. Wow. Just even a good example of how it's not always just emotional. A client who I had years ago, they'd had a skiing accident and sliced the back of their head open with their ski. And it healed up, perfectly healed up. The scar was completely gone. And they were sort of having to constantly, they said it was like an itch, but no matter how much they itched it, it didn't stop. Yeah. And when they came to see me, I sort of said, oh, okay, well, the line that it's cut through is our bladder meridian. So let's remind the body where that energy needs to go. And so I said, rather than scratching it, when you get that feeling, I want you to just trace over the start of the meridian and to remind the body, because once it's been split, then we need to remind it where to go once that scars. They did that for a week, the pain completely disappeared.
So isn't that amazing? That's just made me think, so how many people have had physical injuries? How many people have had surgeries? How many people have had cesareans, you know? And I want, like you, how many other things that we could heal that people are sitting on medications for a very long time and causing other issues that we could heal just by, how did you put it? Just allowing the body to pick up.
Reminding the body where it's supposed to, like where it's you're almost putting it back to default setting, I guess, is probably the best way of thinking about it. Yeah. And that's why, so I do online sessions as well as in-person sessions, but my in-person sessions are based in a chiropractic clinic, because the chiropractor, she was just like, people come to see me, and if there's nothing wrong, if I'm adjusting them and there's nothing physically wrong, then there's another layer to it. So often if she's adjusted them and everything's fine, she's like, okay, there's another layer, you need to go and see Ruth.
So, off you go. I can't do it. But it's true, we're so interconnected, aren't we? I mean, if we're not, I don't know how to explain this within the world, but we are connected from the soul out, aren't we, with everything we do and around, and things are not going to change. And you're so right, the kinesiologist that I used to go see, this beautiful man, and that's what he used to say, it was like, we need to free that up to be able to get that right. And another thing he was saying is, I can chiropractically put you back in, but if everything else is not right, that's just going to keep on coming out. And it's a protective thing of the body. Why should you put a hard structure like your spine or something like that, or a bone, against an inflamed organ? We've got to get rid of that inflammation before we can actually get rid of, stop the spine from coming back into place. That's cool. Now, you were saying too that you were doing what was that, little workshops or something? What was it you were doing?
Yeah, so I'm doing, so one of the big things for me was when I had my digestive issues.
Yeah.
Because I had no control, or lack of control over my body, I actually became really uncomfortable in my skin. I didn't, lots of bloating, just feeling really uncomfortable. And so as I started to improve that, I realized how impacted my body confidence had been. Yeah. And then with working with so many people, I realized how important this was. I actually did, when I was doing my research to sort of bring all of this information together, and I asked people, 90% of people said that they had body confidence issues. Absolutely. And most of them said that they struggle with it every single day.
Well, so it's a industry that just shows you along with the sales that go in that. That's the whole confidence thing, isn't it? Yeah.
And it affects all areas of our life, because if I'm not feeling good about myself, who I am when I turn up for a job interview, who I am when I turn up to go on a date, who I am when I turn up to meet with my friends, is impacted by that, because I'm not feeling particularly wonderful. So, it filters into every single area of our life as well. So so I brought together from all my knowledge from myself, and then all my knowledge from working with hundreds of clients, and I put it into a 6-week online program where we go through sort of the main issues that I noticed that sort of really impact our body confidence.
Yeah. Now, sorry, that just reminded me, you're just not a kinesiologist, are you? You've got all these other beautiful modalities under your skin. Can you tell me more? Because obviously these workshops you're putting together is going to you're going to bring all these skills in as well, aren't you? Yeah, you can't be.
I think kinesiology basically is the way of testing. Mm-hmm. And then basically from there, I sort of say to people, I have a shopping list of things that I can offer your body to see what's going to help it the most. So then from there, you always end up building and expanding and growing that shopping list. So as well as kinesiology, I've done emotional freedom technique or tapping. I've done craniosacral, lymphatic drainage, Reiki. I've just finished doing picture tapping, which is a combination of art therapy and tapping. Awesome. And lots of other little things in between as well.
You've got quite a full, I call it a toolbox. You call it a shopping list. I call it a toolbox. When something comes up, you've got tools in your box to go reach, because everyone doesn't need the same tool. Every situation doesn't need the same tool, but so you've got quite a kit. Well done. So you must be really devoted to other people, because people don't put in this amount of study, effort, and cost, because I know myself how much I've thrown into study and sacrifice, unless you've got a love for people, well done.
I think it's just realizing that, with little tweaks, someone's whole life can change. It really, really can. And you get those little, when you do have those doubts, and I think anyone that does work with people has those doubts, you get that little message from someone. I got a message from someone this morning just thanking me and how powerful it is, and a message I think last week sort of from someone saying, I can't even put into words how much you've helped me. And you kind of go, I really have to do this. I don't, you don't really feel that you have an option. It feels like almost it's something that you've been chosen to do, I guess, for want of a better word. And especially at the moment with what's going on, you realize how much we need that help. We really, really do.
We do. And coming out the side of stuff, I've got no idea when all this world stuff's going to, get back on order. But, even coming out the other side of it, the impact of this, what's happening right now, we definitely need more people like you, or at least people in aware that they've got tools. No, that's really not a word to say, but people like you that they can come to and take all this off, because it will manifest into some illness, and some serious illness, if it's not dealt with. Yeah. Just going back, so these I keep on calling them workshops. What's the word for it you're doing? Sorry, I've gone.
It's an online program.
Online program. That's what I was going to say. I'm sorry. You've blown me with. I love kinesiology, and I can talk to it forever. And I'm trying to stay on track here because I've got so many questions going on in my mind. So it is only online. You're not doing them hands-on.
Not hands-on at the moment, so it's all online. And one of the reasons for that is some of the techniques that we're doing, they actually have what we call borrowed benefits. So when we do it as a group, it emphasizes how well it works. And I think as well, sometimes when we're sort of thinking about body confidence, sometimes actually being able to hide behind a screen can actually help a little bit, when we are working on those things. So so at the moment it's just online, especially with where we are in the world, never knowing quite. If you plan for something for 6 weeks, we never know whether we're going to be able to do that in person for 6 weeks.
I was about
at the moment.
To say, how spot on is that? Because, like you said, often when we're dealing with things or new to things, exactly, your self-confidence, you don't want to do that in front of someone else, or who now half the time we don't know if we're locked down or we're not locked down, or what are we doing, and a lot of people aren't confident to plan forward. No, that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And it's really good to know too that your modality is available to anyone. It doesn't matter where they are. It can be done in your office, or it can be done over Skype or wherever or however. So it is accessible to everyone and definitely needed. I think half the reason why I'm interviewing you is because I think you're very, very valuable to this world. Thank you so much for giving back and thinking about the children too, because you're right, it all starts with the children. It really does. And I think if parents see the change in the children, hopefully they'll have a little bit of a change too, because there's a lot of, I won't say men or women, but I just know myself as being a woman, there's a lot of women that do carry a lot, because we're conditioned that we have to carry all this and we have to suck it all up and we have to keep going and we have to be a super mum and a super wife and a super everything else. And in the end they fall down, and we don't want that. We're too special for that.
No.
Well, the next big question I've got for you, Ruth, how do they find you? How do we all find you? How do we come and access you?
So my business is called Finding Balance Kinesiology. So my website is just findingbalancekinesiology.com. On Instagram and Facebook, it's just Finding Balance Kinesiology. Email info@findingbalancekinesiology.com. So type in Finding Balance Kinesiology and you should hopefully find me. I should pop up.
Okay. And your online workshops, are they available on your website as well?
Yes. Yeah. So when you go to the website, they're on there as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Now, is it all right if I link all the information down the bottom for the viewers? So then they want to jump on, contact you, access you. I'm sure you're going to be undoubted by now after this, but no, well, thank you so much. And like I said, viewers, I'm going to link everything down to beautiful Ruth down the bottom here. And feel free to get back with any questions you have, because I'm sure Ruth will be happy to answer any questions. But she's available for you, and please take her up at the moment, because the whole world needs this. They really do, especially the beautiful children. I can just see so much going on with that, with the children.
It's that ripple effect as well. So even sort of when we think one person in a family can have a ripple effect on the whole family. So sometimes the issue might not be ours, but we can work on it. and it can actually change. And if we think about where we are as a world at the moment, you know, there's so much that we have no control of right now. And I know sometimes I can kind of get lost down that sort of rabbit hole of wondering what life is going to look like. So then it's just going, okay, how do I make my immediate world around me the best that I possibly can?
Yeah.
And from that ripples on out.
Yeah, and you're right, and that's what I was trying to get there. I had a bit of a, you know, vision of years ago. I used to work in a retail, you know, big retail department store, and you used to see parents yelling at children, and then children having tantrums, and both of that was affecting each one. And because no one really knew how to stop that cycle, it just kept on going. And then you see them as teenagers, and they're all still yelling at each other, and then that passes on through generations. Yeah,
The hard part is, I always say to clients, I said, it would be super easy if we were in a little bubble where everybody around us is completely, you know, perfectly emotionally mature and had dealt with all their issues, and we were able to just, you know, be working our own stuff around that. But we've all got stuff going on, so then it's just everybody's just doing the best thing that they can based on their circumstances. So it's just whatever we can do to improve that.
And isn't that, sorry, we're digressing. We should have finished by now, but I just don't.
Sorry.
You know, no, you made me digress. It's just amazing. I love it. Even that can be taken in the embryo stage, isn't it? You know, as well, like some of the stuff that we carry through from the embryo stage, that could be from our grandparents and stuff like that. So I think if you can release all that, it changes the whole paradigm and then changes their whole future. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. The impact that you can make to an individual, to then their children, to then their generation, and it just keeps on going on, you know, and on and on and on. So anyone out there that wants to make a huge change to them, their children, and their next, you know, 20,000 generations, go see Ruth. Really, really blessed. Thank you so much, Ruth. Love you.
Thank you so much.
Time. Appreciate you so much. And yeah, anyone that wants to see Ruth, I'm going to link everything else down below. But for now, thanks for joining us. I'll see you soon. Bye.